Y'all people, I'm back again, because, I got nothing else to do. I haven't been posting, yes, I know, but that's just, I don't know, I'm not a full-on YouTuber, I don't do this just every day, I just do this once at a time. So, just please bear with all the videos I will not be making for quite a while. If I ever get more subscribers, then probably I'll start changing my schedule, but yeah.
What made you say, how the f is this person still alive? An unlucky lucky guy forgot his keys and was climbing back into his own apartment through the window.
What?
His cousin friend thought that he was an intruder and pointed a gun at him and pulled the trigger as the unlucky lucky guy opened his mouth to say don't shoot.
Oh my
The
god.
bullet went into his mouth and clean exited the back of his neck.
Ooh.
After surgery, he was totally fine in a few days, somehow missed all major structures.
Okay, that's
Didn't even
impossible.
chip a tooth. Really pissed at his cousin. From my neurosurgery rotation in med school. Really pissed at his cousin at 3 beer for life. Hey cousin, you remember when you shot me with a gun? You get this round. A guy I know with cancer smokes 2 packs a day and drinks a fifth of Fireball every day.
What? That
He
should
lives in a
really
trailer
kill
so
you.
dirty there is a half inch of dirt according to his wife's mother. He recovered from surgeries in that trailer. Eventually we got word he was quitting chemo and was just going to accept death 5 years ago. He was given 2 months to live. He is now completely cancer free. Life is just weird sometimes. His
Yeah.
lifestyle was so unhealthy that he managed to kill his own cancer. When
Is
I
that
was in
possible?
college, there was a kid that exited a freeway at near freeway speed. Problem was, it was a construction zone at night, no lights, and it wasn't supposed to be an open exit. Drove right into a pile of rebar. One of the poles went through the car into his face and pinned into the seat through his head. A couple
Jeez.
of years later, I was in grad school, in anatomy seminar, and the surgeon presented that kid's case as a study. Not only did he live, the rib bar had slid right past the base of the brain spinal column. It was so close, they had to twist it out like a screw because the ribbing on the bar threatened nerve damage. They literally rebuilt this kid's skull around his brain. His recovery photo was a totally normal kid smiling. He had a small scar on his chin. I say kid, but he was like 17. Just to be clear. One of my
Okay, okay. That's some life crazy moments. Goodness, I can't speak.
patients is a roofer who lived a very full life of alcohol, women, and drugs. He was infected with HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and was psychotic and didn't really care about his health at all. He was ghostly thin and weighed 110 pounds on a 6-foot frame, which included 20 pounds of acid in his abdomen. He was angry and didn't listen to anyone, refusing therapy most of the time. I met him first in the ICU, where he had full-blown AIDS.
Full
End-stage
blown
liver
AIDS.
disease, hepatorenal syndrome, unexplained lymph nodes all over his body, variceal hemorrhage, Kaposi sarcoma, and spontaneous bacterial peritonitis.
Okay, I do not know what any of that is, and if you can tell me, please tell me in the comments.
Prognosis of in-hospital death was more than 90% even with therapy. I was involved in his care for about 2 weeks and again he refused every therapy that his primary physician suggested. I was surprised he lasted the 2 weeks. Finally, he was so fed up of the noisiness in the ICU that he requested transfer to palliative care and was eventually sent to a hospice for patients with advanced HIV to live out his remaining few days. 1 year later I get a call from the hospice requesting a follow-up appointment for him. I was shocked that he was still alive and asked if I could talk to him. He was all better. Turns out he had the hots for his nurse in the hospice and did everything she asked in order to please her, including taking his medications for the first time.
Oh my
She
god.
had slowly nursed him back to health, convinced him to restart HIV meds, put him on a low-salt diet for his liver disease, and then eventually got him up and mobile. He spent another 6 months in a rehabilitation facility, then went back to work. He saw me in follow-up for a while as we treated his hepatitis C. Then his cirrhosis shockingly improved. After a couple of years he moved away to another place to start a construction company and became rather successful financially, and remains abstinent on his form of ISIS.
That's
He's the only person that I've seen come back from death.
uh,
My
okay.
resident called me urgently one night and said I needed to come to the hospital. A young man was cut in half by a train. I asked why I needed to come in. There was no way he could survive that. She explained that somehow he was maintaining his pressure and wasn't bleeding out. When I arrived, I found that the force of train had sealed off all the major vessels from the pelvis down. Crimped like a human tortellini.
Oh my
To then stick
god.
out. Guy gets shot in the abdomen. Drops to his knees. Shooter puts one through the top of his head near his forehead. Bullet exits through his jaw. He wouldn't stop complaining about how much he hates that the guy who shot him. Young girl driving a car gets T-boned on the passenger side by an Altima going at least 70 miles per hour. Her car looks like it was hit by an IED, so we assumed she was deceased upon arrival when the other crew on scene said our focus was extricating the people in the Altima. Girl driving was completely unhurt
That is
by a
stupid.
Volvo. Kind of retelling, but one time a cadaver on which I was performing an autopsy had a lung which was flipped upside down. When I tried to flip it to the proper position, bloop, it flipped right back to upside down. After some due diligence we realized the lung was a transplant, and the surgeons who performed the transplant had attached the organ incorrectly. The lung had been fighting to be upside down its whole life in this other man. After 15 or so years, the man eventually moved in a way that allowed it to flip over, resulting in his death. Not really a how the F is this person still alive, but more of a how the F did this person live this long with this condition. A
What?
lady walked into the hospital with her face pointed at her chest. Her C1 vertebra had somehow fallen off C2, with her spinal cord delicately draped across the odontoid process. No damage to anything. Repaired with slow traction and a halo for a little while. Still baffles my mind 5 years later.
That's a cool
Older
lady.
woman called 911 for chest pain. Her vital signs were shit and she had the look that anyone who's ever seen a patient about to die will recognize instantly. Her EKG suggested multiple blockages in her coronary arteries, and we had to put her on a ventilator shortly after she got to the ER because she deteriorated so quickly. Cath lab confirmed the EKG findings. Complete blockage of one artery and 9.
I'm hearing so many things I do not get, my goodness. Like, what is all this? Please tell me in the comments. I am completely baffled.
99% blockage of two other major arteries. Unfortunately, it was too extensive to resolve with PCI, so the only option was to fly her to the university hospital in the city for an emergent triple bypass. It turned out that she'd had multiple episodes like this, but not quite as severe, over the last 6 months and had refused bypass surgery not once, not twice, but 3 times in favor of a Mediterranean diet. Well, at this point she didn't have much say anymore and family agreed, so off to the OR she went. I took care of her again about 4 months later and she actually seemed to have made a remarkable recovery. As a student, had a younger come in who self-inflicted a 22 to the inside of his mouth and passed out.
Wait,
Awoke
what?
the next morning. Didn't recall the night prior. Went to work. He says he's not feeling right and starts acting odd. Co-workers call EMS. They take him in and the ED is working him up and in the process notices a mix of clear fluid and blood in the back of his mouth. They call ENT and get a CT head. Shows 11 or so bullet fragments throughout his noggin. The
What?
guy was acting by that time completely unfazed. I was very fazed. Working in an Aboriginal community, a woman walked in complaining of a head itch behind her eye. She was told to take a seat and as she turned around she had a butter knife sticking out the back of her skull. Apparently a drunk relative came home and stabbed her while she slept. Edit. Yes, she survived. Was flown back to Townsville for imaging. Then on to Brisbane for surgery. How strong do you have to be to stab a butter knife through someone's skull? 7 strongs. Or 3 strongs and 5 drunks.
What?
I helped take care of an old dude who had one leg amputated and had broken his other leg, so he was seeing us because of that. He was on oxygen and not being very compliant with using his wheelchair. We were talking with him and he was getting really argumentative. How am I supposed to chop wood in a wheelchair was what he kept demanding. When asked how he was chopping wood with one leg in the first place, he responded that he'd crawl into the woods and hop up to chop the wood. This was even more concerning. When the doctor asked how he was carrying his axe, oxygen, and the wood he chopped, he looked him straight in the eye and said, "I carry M on my back." Not sure if he was serious, but he was pretty dang grizzled and looked like he may have been crawling through the woods.
What?
Not a doctor. A classmate of mine in HS was out snowmobiling in the middle of the night. He was going about 50 miles per hour down a trail. Some asshole had put a chain across the trail just to be an asshole.
Oh
He
man, what a
didn't put
dude.
reflectors on it and it wasn't even on his own land. It was on state land.
Oh, that can hurt someone.
Unfortunately, my classmate had a backrest on his sled. The chain hit him square across his chest. It slammed him into the backrest, which fortunately broke off.
Crap.
He rode back home and crawled into bed. Later, his mom made him go to the local clinic that had a small ER. Then I flighted him down to Duluth immediately. He had a ruptured spleen. Part of his liver was torn. His heart was badly bruised. And he had a collapsed lung. He was bleeding pretty bad internally. The doc told him that, if he hadn't been so muscular, he would have died out on the trail. The man was about 6 feet and 245 pounds and ripped like a bodybuilder when he started 6 surgeries later. He was maybe 130 pounds. He looked like Beth and his whole chest was railroad tracks. They had to crack his chest twice to deal with his heart and opened up his abdomen numerous times to deal with infections. Now, he's the same loud crazy person he always was. A successful business owner with a wife and kids. Everyone thought he was going to die, including the doctors, but he pulled through. For me, it was a guy who was cleaning his loaded shotgun and it blew half his face off, jaw and all. He was actually pretty good from the mid-nose up.
Oh
The
my.
thing that surprised me is how good of shape he was in afterwards. He didn't even go to the ICU, we just admitted him to the med-surg floor. He was up communicating via whiteboard within a few hours and was adamant that he did not try to kill himself. Got a psych consult anyway, but they agreed. Another inch dorsal with a barrel of that gun and he would have been done for.
I know,
This
right?
is why you treat guns as always loaded, folks. Even if you personally just unloaded the gun, it is still loaded. Even if it's in pieces on the bench, it's still loaded. Even if there is no gun, it's still loaded. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.
Okay. Okay, let me tell you. Okay. Most of the video I did not get because most of it was doctor stuff, and doctor stuff isn't my preference. Isn't good. I don't get that. The rest of it was just plain stupid people just getting hurt, and it was just funny. So it's not funny they got hurt. It's just funny that how it happened. Like the part where like she got stabbed in the head with a butter knife. Like how did that happen? Anyway, I'm kind of sick right now, so yeah. So please go subscribe to Night Owl, like his videos was made by him. And without further ado, I hope y'all like this video. Please hit the like button down below. Please subscribe if you're new here, which anyone who watches this video is. And if you want me to react or do anything else, I would likely do so. Just put it down in the comments below. Without further ado, I say goodbye to one of the first videos of me. I'm sorry if I'm not that good.